don't always remember the words spoken to you, but you never forget the words you needed and never heard. The silence after your tears, the silence when you waited for comfort and no one came, the silence when you longed to hear, "I love you," or "I'm proud of you," and the room stayed quiet. This is the kind of silence that doesn't echo, it weighs. It presses into your chest like a stone you can't set down. And years later, as an adult, you find yourself shaped not just by what was said, but by everything that wasn't. We think trauma is only violence, chaos, shouting. But some of the deepest wounds come not from what was present, but from what was absent. The unspoken, the unlived, the unloved. A child raised in silence doesn't just grow up with quiet around them. They grow up with quiet inside them. They learn that their needs are inconvenient, their emotions too loud, their voice too much. They stop asking. They stop expecting. They stop speaking. And slowly they begin to disappear, not from the world, but from themselves. Picture a child sitting in their room crying softly into a pillow. They are not waiting for a toy or a reward. They are waiting for footsteps in the hallway, waiting for someone to come, to say, "It's okay, I'm here, you're safe." But the footsteps never come. The only sound is the clock ticking on the wall. For a child, silence is not neutral. It is an answer. It is the absence of safety. It is abandonment wrapped in stillness. And so silence becomes a script. You carry it into your adult life without even realizing. You don't say, "I need you," to your partner because the words stick in your throat. You don't tell your friends you're hurting because vulnerability feels foreign. You don't speak up at work because being unseen feels safer than being rejected. You smile and say, "I'm fine," even when your chest is burning with everything left unsaid. Silence trains you to vanish in plain sight. And the cruelest part? No one notices, because silence doesn't disrupt. It doesn't scream. It blends in, which means the child suffering from silence often looks fine. The adult carrying silence often looks functional. But inside, there is a famine, a starvation of words, of validation, of love spoken out loud. The trauma of silence is not the wound you can point to. It's the missing piece you can't describe. Bessel van der Kolk, in The Body Keeps the Score, reminds us that the nervous system records every absence just as much as every blow. Gabor Mate explains that trauma isn't only what happens to you, it's what happens inside you when you're left alone with your pain. Silence is exactly that. Being left alone again and again until you believe you deserve it. Carl Jung would call it the shadow. The silence becomes a shadow of all the words never said, all the emotions never acknowledged. And that shadow doesn't stay in childhood. It follows you into adulthood. It appears in the way you hesitate to confess love, in the way you choke on your truth in arguments, in the way you sit at a crowded table feeling invisible. Silence convinces you that your voice is dangerous, when in reality, the danger was always in its absence. Think about how silence shapes relationships. You want to tell your partner that you're afraid, but you keep quiet, hoping they'll read your mind. You want to tell a friend that you're lonely, but you laugh instead because laughter feels safer than honesty. You want to ask for help, but you bury it because asking was never rewarded in the past, and so your life becomes a cycle. You long to be seen, but you live unseen. You long to be heard, but you keep your mouth closed. You long for connection, but you stay in the shadows. The devastation of silence is subtle, but devastating. A house without words is not empty. It is loud with what is missing. A childhood without validation is not neutral. It is loud with self-doubt. An adulthood without vulnerability is not peace. It is loud with loneliness. Silence convinces you that nothing is wrong because nothing was said. But absence is not nothing. Absence is a message. This is why the trauma of silence is so often overlooked. There were no bruises, no insults, no broken doors, just the heavy, invisible hand of nothingness. But nothingness shapes you. It tells you, don't need, don't ask, don't speak. And eventually, you stop believing your voice matters at all. And yet silence can be broken. Not by shouting, not by filling every gap with noise, but by daring to give yourself the words you never received. Healing begins when you name what was missing. When you say, I needed comfort, and it never came. When you whisper, I deserved love spoken out loud. When you admit, the silence hurt me more than the words ever could. At first, it feels unnatural. It feels false, because silence feels safer. But remember, silence only felt natural because it was repeated. And repetition can be rewritten. Just as silence once taught you invisibility, words can teach you presence. Start small. Tell someone you trust how you feel, even if your voice shakes. Write down the words you always longed to hear and read them back to yourself until they feel less foreign. Speak gently to yourself in the mirror, saying, I see you. I'm proud of you. You matter. At first, it feels forced, but forced words are still words. And every repetition teaches your nervous system a new truth. Your voice is not dangerous. Your needs are not shameful. Your silence is not your destiny. If you grew up in silence, you are not broken. You are not weak. You are a survivor of absence, and that survival took strength, but survival is not the end. You deserve more than silence. You deserve voices that see you, words that affirm you, love that speaks out loud. And you can start with your own. Breaking the silence doesn't mean being louder. It means refusing to vanish. It means speaking into the spaces that once erased you. It means choosing again and again to be heard, because silence may have shaped you, but it does not have to define you. You don't have to carry the weight of unspoken words forever. You can break the pattern, not by shouting into the void, but by whispering into it, and realizing the void whispers back. You can step out of the shadows not by erasing the past, but by refusing to live by its rules. You can learn that your words, your truth, your needs, they are not too much. They are exactly enough.